Keith Knight, gentleman cartoonist. I actually tour a slideshow virtually right now called Red, White, Black, and Blue. And it's actually I repurposed the name. This was the first name of my first single panel comic book. And, you know, when I put it out back then, it was about the war on terrorism. And right now, I don't know, I think it's the war in America at this point. I need to add something to that. But for those of you not familiar with my work, I'm going to jump right into it right now. Since tying the knot a year and a half ago, a lot of readers have been asking me this question. Has this once macho he-master gone all soft now that I'm a married man? The answer is yes, I've gone all soft, soft and supple. It's true, the best thing about getting hitched is being able to use all your wife's girly products in the bathroom. Stuff I wouldn't be caught dead buying in public. Okay, let's see, we've got some anti-crab ointment, anal wart remover, and a peach melba loofah scrub. Shh, not so loud with the loofah scrub. That's right, people, no more scrubbing the nether regions with lava soap for me. We've got rosemary and aloe vera and eucalyptus leaves infused with hibiscus shampoo, organic sea kelp and lamb semen exfoliating wash, colloidal oatmeal, and placenta enema. Honestly, y'all, using this stuff does make a difference. A lot of folks have been noticing, gee, your skin feels terrific. So this is what I do. I do autobiographical comics about stuff that happens to me, stuff that's going on in my life. But it always sort of has a twist at the end. And, you know, a lot of the twist will remind most readers that my experience may be a little tiny bit different than yours. So how did I get here? Well, like you heard, I grew up in Boston. And this is when I grew up. This was the most famous photo in Boston when I was growing up. And this was at a anti-busing rally. This is when they were busing Black kids into white neighborhoods to go to white schools. And this is a guy holding the American flag who's trying to stab a Black man with it. And I don't know if you are familiar with the photo, but there's a great story with the participants in the photo. It's worth looking up and researching, but the Black man is actually a lawyer. But this is the environment I grew up in. And me and my twin sister were actually the only Black kids at this school that we went to when I was from 4th to 6th grade. But I will say this, in the 4th to 6th grade, that special school that we went to, all we did were plays, like puppet shows, comics, all these different really cool creative stuff. And then they pulled the funding. Anyway, so we were the only Black kids there, and I never had a Black teacher all the way from kindergarten to 12th grade. And there's a survey that came out that said when Black kids have a Black teacher, just one Black teacher within those grades, their likelihood of going to college goes up 30 to 35%. And it sounds insane, right? It sounds crazy, but there's something about seeing somebody that looks like you and learning from somebody that looks like you creates this response. Now, I never had a Black teacher until I was a junior in college. And that class was American literature. And for that class, my teacher gave us folks like Richard Wright, who else? Ralph Ellison and Maya Angelou and James Baldwin. And when someone said, you know, this is American literature class, why are you giving us all Black writers? He said, I'm giving you all American writers. And boom, my head exploded when he said that. And I responded in a way that I didn't realize. For years, all through high school, just through school itself, we never received books that had protagonists of color. I received more books where animals were the heroes of the story than people of color. So this class meant so much to me. I responded to it so much that my work went from autobiographical things about keg parties to I made it a point to draw comics about what it's like to be Black growing up in America. And so my work really changed from that point on. This is dedicated to that one Black kid, The Cave Chronicles by Keith Knight. This is dedicated to that one Black kid who lives in that tiny ass town off the highway in the middle of nowhere. This is dedicated to that one Black kid who was not into hip hop in high school. Black Sabbath's not Black, you know. This is dedicated to that one Black kid who gets used as the reason why someone isn't a racist. I can't be prejudiced. My mom invited one to my 13th birthday party. This is dedicated to that one Black kid with hair people want to touch all the time. Back off. Is it like a Brillo pad? This is dedicated to that one Black kid who gets told they're not really Black. Yo, man, brothers don't do what you do. Hey, it's a compliment coming from me. This is dedicated to that one Black kid who always gets asked why folks can't use the N-word. Why ask me? I don't use it, but you could if you wanted to. This is dedicated to that one Black kid who wonders if they measure up to the myth. This is dedicated to this one Black kid. So this is one of my most popular prints and popular comics. It's like Black people bingo. And when people see it, especially Black people, they look at it and go, oh, yep, that was me. Yep, that was me. That was me. It's literally a universal thing. And that's what doing these comics for me, why it means so much, because it's a very personal thing. But I think the more personal you get, the more universal it is. Because, you know, not only does this resonate with other Black people, it resonates with that one Latino kid, that one Asian kid, that one gay kid, that one disabled kid. And we've all felt that way. So I think that's why this comic resonates so much. But just going back to that teacher that I had as an American literature teacher, what fascinated me the most was the fact that he was able to work within the system and subvert the system at the same time. And I will say this, because people, you know, people are like, how did you know that you were going to be a cartoonist? And I had always known I was going to be a cartoonist. I had no idea how I'd get there. But like, since I was a little kid, I was drawing all the time, and I was always encouraged by everybody. But the biggest thing for me was, looking back, I did actually have one Black teacher from kindergarten to 12th grade. And it wasn't an official teacher. I had a sub. I had a young sub who came in and did a study class for us. He was about 24, 25 years old, young Black man. Here's the thing. He wanted to be a working cartoonist. So what he would do was sit up there and doodle he would give us a study class. He would doodle the whole time, but he would invite me to sit next to his desk and draw with him. And so we would draw stuff together. And so just having this guy do that at just that one time, and seeing somebody that looks like me doing something that I wanted to do, meant the world to me. So it was that you know, it's so bizarre that just that one person sort of got me to that next place. But yeah, it's just an amazing sort of connection that I had with him. And I was just very lucky, very fortunate. It always amazes me the way people react when they first enter my bedroom. Holy smokes, what the hell are you doing with that blow-up doll? Folks are often surprised to find a Feel Me Up Wilbur doll in my bedroom, although I don't know why. Tickle Me Elmo may be the #1 doll for America as a whole, but Feel Me Up Wilbur has been selling like hotcakes in the Black community. They come in quite handy, although not for the use the manufacturer I had originally intended. Taxi, and he's thinking, Black man equals stabbed in back, off duty, off duty. But wait, look, Black man plus white guy equals okie dokie. Get the hell in here, boys. You see, Because 5 black men standing on a corner without Wilbur is a gang. But 5 black men standing on a corner with Wilbur is a basketball team with a coach. They're banned in Boston, so I bought a few to send to my friends back east. Oh my God, look, it's Hootie and the Blowfish. So yeah, this is another favorite of mine. And it stemmed from the fact that I really couldn't catch a cab. And this is a long time ago, but I really couldn't catch a cab in San Francisco, of all places. And so it wasn't until a white coworker of mine came by and we started talking, and then I was able to catch a cab really easily. And, you know, it's these little tiny sort of microaggressions and tiny things that are sort of just part of your life when you grow up, sort of marginalized. And, you know, you don't think it's a big deal until it is a big deal. And so it's hard to describe this stuff, at least back in the day when you didn't have a cell phone to sort of prove it all. So about 20 years ago, I was asked to develop another cartoon outside of the K Chronicles. And so they wanted me to do something similar to the K Chronicles, but I didn't want to do that. I want to do something exactly the opposite, which is instead of a multi-panel, I would do a single panel. Instead of autobiographical, I would do it out of the news. So I came up with a single panel and I called it Think. Now, there's a few weird things about Think, which after doing this logo and staring at it for 20 years, 15 years, I realized 2 things. One is that Think is my last name spelled backwards without the G, which is really weird that I just thought of that like 5 years ago. But 2, the reason why I love this logo so much is it, in a very subtle way, reminds me of Snoopy from Peanuts, with the eye, the dot over the eye, and then the parentheses looks like his ear. And it's drawn like there's no way I could intentionally draw Snoopy that well, but for some reason this subtly reminds me of it. So this is what, you know, sitting in a pandemic makes you think of. So this is the very first Think strip, Denny serving black since 1997. If signs told the truth, that was based on a suit that was brought against Denny's for not serving blacks and actually serving whites before blacks who had been there sooner, making blacks pay before they got their food, a number of different things. And so what I love about Think is I'm able to take ideas that I can't flesh out completely into K Chronicles, but I could do these quick sort of shots. So I'm going to run through them really fast. Your sister had the baby, it's a boy. The exact moment radical black activist Thomas X realized that, yes, indeed, he was an Uncle Tom. What was promised, 40 acres and a mule. What was got, 40 ounces in a pit bull. This just in, police have just released a description of the alleged gunman who's been terrorizing the downtown area. Please don't let it be a black guy. Please don't let it be a Middle Eastern guy. Ha, they'll never catch me. Ah, the power of white privilege. A screening for women only? That's discrimination. I demand entry. Hey, Louise, we got another snowflake wanting to get a pap smear. Send him in. The Penis Monologues with Will Chamberlain, Jimi Hendrix, and Milton Berle. How was it? Way, way too long. That's for some of you older folks. You're doing this because I'm black, aren't you? Oh, now see, why do you always have to play the race card? So this is one of my more controversial ones, but I don't see it as being controversial. I see it as being rather truthful. And things like the race card, stuff like black on black crime, stuff like, well, get over it, it was a long time ago. These are all things that people say when they want to avoid this discussion about race, which is essentially what my slideshow that I currently tour, virtually tour, is about. It's about racial literacy, America's racial literacy, and how America's biggest problem is its race problem. And we are reluctant to address it. We are reluctant to talk about it. And if we want to exist and move forward as a country, this is what we need to talk about. But unfortunately, for so long, the discussion on race only is dictated by white people, and it only goes as far as when white people feel uncomfortable, which is about 5.2 seconds. So it's, we have to change that. We have to have the discussion, and the discussion is a very awkward discussion, and people are going to make mistakes, but there's no way we can move forward about it. And people always say, well, why do you always have to make it about race? Why do you always have to make it about race? And listen, we didn't make it about race. White people made it about race. Like white people made it about race, and we don't learn that in school. That is, I think, the biggest, and I think it's a purposeful mistake, is we are told that America is a place where everybody is completely free. Everybody has the same exact chance of making it as everybody else. Slavery was a super long time ago, but then Lincoln freed the slaves, and there was Martin Luther King, and then we had a black president, and everything's cool. And that is really sort of skating over a lot of stuff. Usually the talk about race goes like this. One night at Ye Olde Gallery opening, frankly, I don't care if a person is black, white, green, purple, or brown. Me too. Who the heck are all these green and purple folks white people are always talking about? The Cape Chronicles by Keith Knight. I'm sorry, I consider myself relatively open-minded, but I have to draw the line at purple people. I know this ain't PC, but purple people are nothing but barely civilized knuckle draggers. Believe me, I know. I sat next to one in second grade. When I was growing up, a purple family moved in next door, and the whole neighborhood started to smell like Fig Newtons. And I swear this one guy was hired at my job just because he was, well, I heard green folks have 3 nipples. I think I'd better be going. Me too. Be careful walking back to your car. The purple people might get you. So yeah, here's the thing. Unless Avatar is a documentary, there are no blue people, there are no green people, and there are no purple people. And until we have, we place the discussion of race in reality, we will never, ever get close to addressing the issues we have in this country. And I mean, thankfully, it's been laid bare in a way that I don't think it could have ever happened unless everybody was stuck in their house and no one had a job to go through. And so stuff was on the internet that they couldn't turn away from. And then they saw leadership that really didn't care about bringing anybody together. So everyone was dying to get out. This was like the perfect storm of sort of people having the Band-Aid ripped off and being like, oh, wow, like it really is terrible. So about 11, 12 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I launched a daily comic strip. And I know most of you don't read daily newspapers. And I launched it in 2008 when, the financial crisis like hit everything. And it was the worst year in newspaper history. So what a bad time to launch a daily strip. But it was a great way to work. I mean, as a cartoonist, it is such, talk about an underdog. To try to get onto a daily newspaper page as a cartoonist, there's probably about maybe 50 people that do it in the whole country. And it's so hard to become a daily cartoonist. Like when you die, they just continue running your strip. So to try to get on a page is like, you're an underdog. And for anybody to even look at your cartoons and to be a black cartoonist, like every newspaper is like, sorry, we already have a black cartoon. Like literally cats have better representation in the comic pages than Black people, which goes back to the school books, right? So I'm going to just show you some of my favorite dailies. Do you think extraterrestrials are racist? Why do you ask? They never abduct people of color. It's easier to catch white people at night. Um, so what I love about my readers is after reading this, they sent me a bunch of newspaper articles about the first couple that got abducted by aliens. And it turned out it was a mixed race couple. It was a Black husband and a white wife. And I always say that they got caught because of the white wife. All right, so this got the most letters out of any of my comic strips. Vet mentoring. A guy in my unit smothered an IED, took one for the team. When I got home, I went to tell his loved ones what kind of sacrifice he made. Turns out he was gay. I was the first one to let his partner know what happened. I've shared things with soldiers that I'd never tell family and friends. War does that. Here was a guy who gave his life for his fellow soldiers, but wasn't allowed to share with us who was waiting for him back home. If we're not fighting for this soldier's freedom, then what are we fighting for? So my strip ran in the Washington Post, it ran in the San Francisco Chronicle, it ran in the Boston Herald. It also ran in the San Diego Union Tribune. San Diego is a big military town. And after this strip ran, I started getting all these letters, all these emails from military people. And so I was, I was like, I don't know, have I done something wrong? And then I opened it up and all the letters were saying, that comic strip that you wrote about the vet mentoring changed my mind on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I kept on opening these things up and I was like, wow, like as cartoonists, as editorial cartoonists, you wish that you could change people's minds with your cartoons. And that's like a fantasy of ours. And the fact that I was getting this proof that like people were changing their minds just because of a strip I did, it was like an amazing feeling. And like I said, my strip ran in the Washington Post on Sundays. This is our last decent president in the Oval Office. And on the Oval Office desk are the Sunday comics. Now, that strip that I showed you ran in June of that year. And in October of that year, Obama repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now, I'm not saying I had anything to do with it, but the evidence is right there on the desk. So comics can change the world. Yes. So anyway, I got very lucky. I got extremely lucky as some kid who grew up in a little tiny working class town north of Boston, who got into a business and launched a daily strip at like way too late. And no one saw his comics. Somehow got a TV show. And here's the thing, as much as I didn't like doing, as much as stressful as it was doing a daily comic strip for 11 years, and I had 9 deadlines a week for 11 years, it showed Hollywood that I could produce humor on a consistent basis for a long time. And it got me a TV show. So last February, we shot the first season of a show called Woke. And it's based on my comics and my life. And here I am in the reproduction of my San Francisco apartment. This was much more spacious and had much more nerdy stuff. But I always knew my stuff would get developed somehow, some way, but I thought it would be some sleazy, low grade film thing out of Arizona that will say, listen, we ran out of money, so we're gonna, just sell it overseas to some sleazy, just some weird thing like that. But I literally have Hulu and Sony producing it. I have just amazing actors. Blake Anderson from Workaholics is playing my roommate. Mo Marable in the Glasses is this amazing director that it's all live action with a little bit of animation, and then Teamer plays another roommate in the show, and um, and Lamorne Morris from New Girl actually plays me. Now it takes place in San Francisco. They wouldn't give us enough money to work to do it in San Francisco, so we shot it in Vancouver. And this is just some of the stuff. If you've ever been to San Francisco, Muni is the transportation stuff. But, you know, there was all this cool stuff. And since I lived there for 16 years, I was very, you know, particular with certain things. And, but the funny thing was, we shot it in February, like I said. It snowed and rained like 32 straight days from late January through the February. And so like literally we were shooting something that was supposed to take place in Oakland, and it looked like there was like 10 inches of snow on the ground. So there were a lot of things that we meant to shoot outside, but we had to shoot inside. And it really is amazing. And this has, I think this is a lot to do with art, which is, it's just as much about the stuff you cannot do. It's about the resources that you don't have as much as the resources you do have. And, you know, I'm not comparing my show to the first Star Wars, but George Lucas created Star Wars with like where a lot of the effects didn't exist yet. They ran out of money. They had sandstorms. People thought the script was completely absurd. And he created this masterpiece that everybody's, you know, freaked out about. At the same time, he had all the resources in the world to create the prequels. No one would say no to him. He had all the money, he had all the digital, and you see what happened to the prequels. Now, I know you're a different generation, so you might have grown up on the prequels and you might like them. But when you get older, you realize that they're crap. Anyway, it's like James Bond. You grow up with the James Bond that you're stuck with. And then when you get older, you go, oh, okay. Yeah, that guy, you know, Sean Connery was, but I will say Daniel Craig is a really good James Bond. You grew up in a good time. So, but I grew up with Roger Moore. And when you grow up with Roger Moore, you're like, when you get older, you're like, oh, he was terrible. Anyway, I digress. So this is my favorite picture. My twin sister came to visit me and on the set. And so there's Lamorne. She just took this amazing picture of me sitting where you watch the monitors, and then Lamorne Morris, who plays me, outside getting direction and stuff. And I was like, my goodness, like, I was telling my sister, this is like the greatest picture ever. And she's like, huh? What? It's, I love how art can happen just accidentally. And really, like, things come down to, I think a lot of stuff comes down to art can happen accidentally, you know, and intentionally, but I didn't know what would happen when I first started drawing cartoons. And what I knew early on, and I was very lucky to figure it out, which was after reading those books from James Baldwin and Maya Angelou and all that stuff, is tell your story. Like, it's important to tell your story, because if you don't tell your story, someone else is going to tell it for you, and they're going to get it wrong, and you're going to be angry about it. So through your art, I think it's so important to express yourself and tell your story, and it's a great way to work through things. I don't know how I could make it through these past few years, and especially this pandemic, if I didn't have the art to work through a lot of my frustrations and emotions and stuff. And so that's the biggest thing I do when I speak to kids, is to tell your story. And for me, I think when you come up in the world, and children are automatically underdogs. It doesn't matter what, you know, what you're in. Like, to even just make it to this earth is sort of a privilege. To be born in this country, as screwed up as it is a privilege. And to be able to create, um, I think is a privilege, but it's also necessary. I think the creative community is so effective in what's going on today on the streets, and just not just the ones on the streets, but and I hesitate. You know, I've been called an activist. It's hard for me to say that, because when you see people fighting for people's rights on the street, those are activists. For me, I'm an artist that deals with these issues, and I create and stuff. But I like, you know, last time I was fighting on the street like that, I'll you know, I'll walk in a march, but the way some of the folks are on the street fighting like that, that is activism. And we need all aspects of it. So um, we all need to do what we can. So if it isn't straight up on the front line challenging the police, it could be in the back, it could be creating something, it could be writing letters to somebody, it could be having discussions with people at home. um, I just know this: 20 years, oh, 25 years on, I got a Facebook message from somebody from college, and she said, Keith, you know, I just want to thank you, because I lived in your dormitory. We lived together in the dormitory at college, and I don't know, I was saying some joke, some racist joke, and you called me out on it, and you, not in an angry way, just explained how why I was effed up, what I was saying, and that sat with me. And she said that she took it home, and she sort of reevaluated all the jokes that her family would say, and she would call them out on it, and her friends, and it grew and grew and grew. And she just sent a picture of her kid playing with she was white, and her kid was playing with a kid of a different race, and she just said, like, um, you know, I look at my kids' friends now, and I just realize that, like, just, you know, my own complacency and this system that we're in. And I started to change because you called me out on that back in the day. Now, I don't ever remember it happening. I was probably stoned, um, but um, but this little thing that I don't remember anything about affected this person in a huge way. So when it feels like you like, oh, I wasn't, you know, I'm not doing enough. Even the little things matter, even the little tiny things. And we all have to do more. We all have to do more if we're going to move forward as a country. And the least we can do is have this awkward conversation. Being able to tell our stories um, is, you know, it's such a hard thing um, to do. But I mean, you know, in as big of a venue as what's going to happen with my show, which is going to drop September 9th. And it's so interesting because it was, you know, a lot of people have seen, I don't know if you've seen the trailer, but it's all about, it sort of pivots on this moment of police profiling and brutality.